Hello guys, I'm Dustin Davis and welcome to the channel. Here you'll find everything you need to know about the Bears. The Bears face a crossroads few saw coming when September arrived. Expectations were high, the roster looked promising, yet persistent issues have surfaced that demand attention from the organization's leadership. Beneath the surface, friction points are emerging. Questions about fit, about production versus salary, about whether the present roster construction can deliver what Chicago needs. The front office is weighing difficult choices, each carrying consequences that extend well beyond this season. What unfolds in the coming days may reshape the trajectory of this franchise. The answers aren't simple, and the path forward remains uncertain for a team caught between competing priorities. Let's check out everything that's been happening in Chicago in the last few hours. First, friends, can I ask for a small favor? If you're liking what we do, click the like button to show your support. It truly means a lot. Thanks again. But beyond the speculation and uncertainty, one name keeps surfacing in trade conversations that could reshape Chicago's offense. Few Chicago supporters anticipated Moore becoming a trade candidate when the year began. His arrival had been framed as foundational, a proven veteran meant to anchor the receiving core alongside Caleb Williams. Yet the opening weeks revealed complications. Moore hasn't displayed his customary consistency, creating separation has proven difficult, and the connection with his quarterback has lacked rhythm, particularly during last Sunday's matchup in Baltimore. While his statistical output remains respectable, it falls short of the premium compensation he commands, and Odunze has increasingly emerged as a primary receiving threat. Conversations about potentially moving Moore have intensified. Teams competing for playoff positions will inevitably show interest in a receiver with his credentials, and dealing him would create additional opportunities for developing talent like Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. ESPN's Courtney Cronin has indicated at least one pathway exists where Chicago parts with Moore to generate cap flexibility, though she acknowledges such an outcome currently appears improbable. Which player represents the most realistic departure candidate? DJ Moore fits that description. While he doesn't rank as the most probable trade target, he presents a more feasible option than figures like left tackle Braxton Jones, who lost his starting position after 44 consecutive starts and currently resides on injured reserve through at least week 24. Moore, entering his 8th professional season, holds the second position among Chicago pass catchers in targets, 38, receptions, 26, and receiving yards, 331. His contract situation at approximately $23.5 million annually against the cap through 2029 creates obvious obstacles for any potential deal. Nevertheless, a playoff contending franchise facing desperation could alter that equation, permitting Chicago to free resources for 2026 while redirecting touches towards rookie Luther Burden III behind Odunze. The market for receivers remains robust. Numerous organizations are pursuing established pass-catching options. Incoming calls about Moore's availability seem entirely reasonable to expect. Conversely, head coach Ben Johnson may prove reluctant to surrender a veteran offensive weapon, while the defensive unit struggles with widespread injuries and Chicago maintains a 4-3 record. Maximizing available scoring options becomes essential under such circumstances. Should the Bears slip to 4-4 following Sunday's contest, leadership might shift toward extended rebuilding priorities. Moving Moore would create short-term pain, but would expedite younger receivers' growth while liberating over $20 million in cap resources to address deficiencies next year. The majority of playoff hopefuls lack sufficient payroll capacity to absorb Moore's financial commitment. Absent a late-week injury or roster adjustment that dramatically changes the landscape, anticipate the existing situation to persist. While the offense draws attention, the defensive side of the ball faces an even more urgent crisis that demands immediate solutions. Chicago's cornerback depth has been devastated. 3 of their top 4 corners occupy injured reserve, and Tyreek Stevenson sat out last week's Baltimore game with a shoulder problem. ESPN's Bill Barnwell proposed that Chicago might tap into Dennis Allen's prior New Orleans relationships for assistance, specifically identifying Alontae Taylor and Isaac Yiadom as potential short-term solutions. Given that Yiadom functions in New Orleans' nickel package and Jaylon Johnson is projected to occupy that identical role in Chicago, the Bears would logically pursue perimeter reinforcement, positioning Alontae Taylor as an obvious acquisition target. Taylor, who turns 26, entered the league as a second-round selection in 2022 and has accumulated 246 tackles, 6 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions during 4 seasons with New Orleans. Playing under Allen last year, Taylor experienced a breakthrough campaign: 89 tackles, 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 16 pass deflections. The Saints' 1-8 beginning raises questions about potential roster restructuring. And though ESPN lists Taylor 9th among potential deadline movers, insiders Adam Schefter and Jeremy Fowler indicate New Orleans isn't proactively marketing him, merely entertaining proposals. That said, Taylor approaches free agency while the Saints possess younger cornerback options including Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Riley, and Jonas Anker. Exchanging Taylor for draft assets carries strategic logic for an organization potentially embracing reconstruction. Considering Taylor's age, performance history, and contract circumstances, Chicago could reasonably obtain him for limited compensation, perhaps a 2025 fifth-round selection paired with a 2026 seventh-rounder. For a defensive coordinator familiar with Taylor's capabilities and a secondary requiring immediate versatility, that represents an appealing minimal-risk proposition. Taylor provides perimeter speed and slot disruption. Across his 4 NFL campaigns, he's registered 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, and 36 breakups, the sort of multiple position skill set capable of elevating Allen's defense. Acquiring Alontae Taylor would likely transcend temporary reinforcement. It would furnish Chicago with an adaptable defender who aligns with Allen's schematic preferences and stabilize a secondary desperately seeking playmakers. Yet the question remains whether a modest addition will be enough, or if Chicago needs to make a bolder, more expensive move to survive. The Chicago Bears have operated with depleted cornerback depth since Jaylon Johnson sustained a significant core muscle injury during Week 2, and though the franchise has voiced optimism regarding his potential return this season, nothing remains guaranteed. That ambiguity has created space for considering a substantial acquisition before next week's NFL trade deadline. ESPN recently solicited evaluations from several prominent analysts regarding each team's stance entering the trade period, outlining probable activity levels and potential targets. Among the concepts presented, Ben Solak recommended the Bears pursue Washington Commanders cornerback Marshon Lattimore as a possible veteran solution to stabilize Chicago's compromised perimeter. Solak indicated Lattimore might be available again following his recent interception of Patrick Mahomes, although he also observed the cornerback has underperformed since joining Washington. Reuniting with Dennis Allen's system would confront the uncertainty at outside corner created by Jaylon Johnson's absence. While Lattimore may no longer operate at peak performance, he could reasonably challenge Tyreek Stevenson for immediate playing time. A former first-round selection and 4-time Pro Bowl honoree, Lattimore previously ranked among the NFL's elite perimeter defenders. The 29-year-old, however, hasn't consistently delivered that caliber since departing New Orleans for Washington. A hamstring ailment restricted his early contributions with the Commanders, and through 8 contests in the 2025 season, his profile appears mixed. He's permitted a modest 79.8 opposing passer rating, but has also surrendered a career-high 14.8 yards per completion, a figure suggesting struggles in man-coverage situations. For Chicago, the fundamental question centers on whether returning to Allen's defense could resurrect Lattimore's finest attributes. He hasn't received Pro Bowl recognition since 2021, the identical year he last appeared in more than 10 games. Yet the Bears might rationalize a high-risk, high-reward maneuver if they believe Johnson's absence will extend so long the roster cannot remain competitive. At minimum, the potential upside involves having both Johnson and Lattimore available late in the year. Expense represents the primary obstacle. Lattimore remains under contract through the conclusion of the 2026 season on the 5-year, $97 million agreement he originally signed with the Saints 4 years prior. While Chicago wouldn't immediately assume the complete $18 million cap impact for 2025, the organization would confront an $18.5 million charge in 2026, an uncomfortable number that complicates the possibility of a straightforward late-round pick exchange. That financial reality renders Lattimore a precarious deadline target, unless the front office determines an immediate enhancement justifies the extended payroll complication. Even if Lattimore proves unrealistic, the Bears must decide whether they can survive without another external addition. Chicago did take measures this week, signing veteran C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the 53-man roster. Gardner-Johnson is anticipated to manage the slot assignment until Kyler Gordon becomes eligible to return from injured reserve in Week 2012, though his ability to stabilize the unit after moving between organizations this year remains questionable. Should Gardner-Johnson fail to generate impact and the Bears falter against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 9, management may conclude it cannot afford waiting for injured players to heal and pursue a transaction before the window shuts. Tyreek Stevenson's shoulder concern, which prevented him from playing in Week 8's Baltimore defeat, only amplifies the pressure. Chicago would prefer a temporary solution rather than a long-term contractual obligation, but a veteran stopgap, even at the expense of most remaining 2025 cap flexibility, might represent the pragmatic approach to preserving their season. Is Marshon Lattimore worth the risk? Would you be willing to absorb that massive contract for a chance at reviving his Pro Bowl form under Dennis Allen? Or is the price tag too steep for a player who hasn't been at his best? Share your opinion in the comments. Do the Bears go big or stay conservative? Before you leave, drop a like and subscribe. Be part of our fan base and let's make Bears even stronger. Until the next video.